And so now it's getting ready to start recording, and when it's all done, the video will actually show up in the group chat. So if you guys want to pull it up at a later time to kind of review, it's like, yeah, what did we agree to on that or whatever? You know, you can kind of replay the video for yourself as well.
Okay.
Yeah, we might need that a few times.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So Dave, I think you were going to start us off in terms of expectations.
Yeah. Well, I liked your examples because they gave me like it prompted me to reflect on things. So it might be just what I'm coming off of, but I did come off of an online game where they were playing Gary Gygax's Tomb of Horrors, and that thing is just nonstop puzzles. And
Okay.
so I guess my answer is that I want to mix, and I don't want I wouldn't really appreciate all combat. So the occasional puzzle is fine. On the other hand, our group was just stymied by some of the puzzles, and we were just sitting there. We knew what what the game master expected was that we're going to proceed and solve these puzzles, but we ended up just like searching for secret doors that would allow us to go through the back doors and avoid all the puzzles and teleporters and things that were set up. So same thing with your question about ecology versus funhouse. The occasion, I guess there I got a stronger reaction, which is I'm more a fan of the ecology. And if occasionally there's like an overlap with something from a different mythology or environment or something like that, that's okay. But before too long, I'll start wondering, like, why is this polar bear in this jungle or things like that? So,
Right.
So those are my biases, I guess. Nothing too extreme in the combat versus puzzles, and I'm more a fan of the ecology than the funhouse kind of thing.
Okay, so in terms of, I guess, expectations, then it's, from what I'm hearing, is that you're looking for a fair balance and an equal mix, not all combat, not all puzzles and riddles and that kind of thing, a little bit of a variety. Is that right?
Yeah, and as far as like if different ones of us come down on different sides of this, then the mix, and then just kind of because we all are somewhat acquainted with one another, we'll just some tolerance and patience. So if I'm like really into combat more than puzzles, my character might just sit back and let some of the eggheads in the party handle it.
Yeah. The problem with puzzles and riddles and that kind of thing in a game is if the GM doesn't do it right, it's a hard road to block. You are dead in the water. There's no advancing the story. There's no advancing the game at all. And I get it. It's there as a change of pace. It's there to kind of, give you something different to do in terms of, sometimes, like for example, when I'm a player in a traditional tabletop RPG, I do my best to avoid combat, even if I'm a combat build character, because I have this curse. When I roll a 20, I come up with so many frickin' ones. Especially if the DM's running critical misses. It's like, everyone stay 10 foot away from me. So I wind up playing, the peace loving paladin or whatever, tries to negotiate. And I know it kind of irks some people. They just, hack and slash or whatever. But so I try to avoid that. But um, if there are any kind of, if I do throw in some kind of non-combat challenge to be overcome or something, then understand it. There's going to be other ways around it. And if I've got an idea on how something's supposed to be solved and you guys don't get it, but you come up with something, that's good enough for me, right? And like,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be A, B, C. If you come up with like, hey, this ought to do it, 1, 2, 3, and like, good enough. I mean, you guys get the feeling of, hey, we accomplished something and let's move on, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Don, what's your thoughts on this topic?
I like that idea as well. Kind of have a balance for everyone. That way, you don't have like one or two people that are really DPS guys that go out there and say smash everything, and then the rest of us should just kind of support cast in the background. Or that we have to catch up to them and go one route with our characters. If we can get a good balance that way, it's good as well. And you know, like you said several times, you end up with the guys that like they're just like they're out there smashing everything before you have a chance to do anything. So it kind of becomes you're just kind of going with the group. So it is nice to
Yeah.
have that puzzle and that balance in the whole thing.
Yeah. So I guess if I understand what you're saying correctly, then maybe you've had the experience where you kind of feel like you're getting dragged along by, the berserker or whatever at the head of the party, who's just dragging everyone along and, rushing you into battle before you're ready. And so if there's something that, if there's a challenge in front of the party that's not a combat, it kind of puts the brakes on that a little bit, gives you a chance to catch your breath and for you to maybe do something.
Right. Yeah. And it gives
Okay.
it more balance to the whole group.
Okay.
And like I said, it's all right. I mean, I understand that there's sometimes you have to railroad us into a certain direction, but I like a little freedom as well to be able to say, hey, maybe we don't want to go that way.
Right.
Give us a few options to go this way, that way, or a few different options there.
Yep. So as far as railroading goes, I'm glad you brought that up. The worst player experience I've ever had, we were railroaded so freaking hard. And to there's a little bit of a disagreement here and there in the gaming community on what exactly railroading is. And so I think maybe we should kind of talk about that first. But um, normally when I run a game, it's not a dungeon crawl. It's an surface dwelling game, and there's a general storyline that's kind of poking you guys, saying, hey, here's kind of what's going on. Here's your lead. Here's kind of what I'm expecting you guys to do, because this is kind of what I got prepared. But at the end of the game session, I always like to ask, okay, what do you guys want to do next? What do you think you're wanting to do next? It's, for example, it's like, okay, do you want to follow this lead and go to this village, or are you guys planning on sticking around town and talking to so and so and doing this or that, or what do you think you're going to do next? So I do absolutely, as much as possible, want to give you guys the freedom to do what you want to do, but at the same time, um, I need to be able to kind of prepare the next game session, and not just improv everything off the top of my head, because we could wind up doing some really bizarre things, or just having a really boring session. And then when we start talking about doing this in a dungeon environment, well, that's a little different because this is going to be my first dungeon crawl. I've certainly thrown parties into dungeons before, but for this just to be an exclusive dungeon crawl, you know, I'm going to design it in such a way, obviously, that you've got choices to make, but understand because it is a dungeon environment, there are going to be times where you're going to kind of feel like maybe you're getting railroaded because like there's only one path to go, right?
Right.
I'm not going to have the time to fully map out the entire dungeon before we get started. So I am going to have to keep it a little restricted, but so there's that side of the railroading, right? Which I'm going to minimize as absolutely as much as possible. The other side of that railroading is, to me, where the GM is basically making the decisions for the players and crossing lines, doing, oh, well, okay, well, you said this to that, or you feel this or that, or whatever. And I'm absolutely not going to do that. It's my job as a storyteller to paint the picture, what you're perceiving with your senses. But I had an experience where, we told the GM, like, okay, well, I'm going to contact so-and-so. And he just assumed that, this was a sci-fi setting. He just assumed that when I was making the call that I was going to bring up certain aspects of the story and go one direction with it when that was not where I was going to go with it at all. And he just totally slammed the door in our face and said, oh, well, you brought this up and whatever. And we're not going to do that kind of thing.
Okay.
Okay. What else we got here? So in terms of dungeon ecology, funhouse, that kind of thing, Dave, you're saying that, basically that ecology should make sense, and I totally agree with that. But Don, what do you think? I mean, do you care about that kind of thing? Is it just whatever's in the dungeons, whatever in the dungeon, and like, I don't know how this, this dragon got into this room, but but it's
Yeah.
here. Let's kill it.
Yeah, that's the only thing I would be concerned about is, like running into it's like a room that is a massive dragon. That's there's no way that it could have got through the door or anything like that. I think that would make sense.
Okay.
So some basis on ecology and some basis on, funhouse.
Okay, because
Good mixture of the both.
I think it's kind of a discussion of realism versus just it's a game. Let's just roll some dice, right?
Yep.
And for me, it's about immersion. I like things to make sense. I won't say I like things to be realistic because it's a fantasy game, right? I mean, everyone makes the argument like, oh, I want it to be real. Well, you're throwing magic missiles and fireballs, dude. It's not real, right? It's a game of imagination. I get that, but to me, it needs to make logical sense in some way, shape, or form. So maybe you might come across something that it's like, okay, well, I don't know how the hell that's possible, but so if you ever find yourself questioning that, know that there's a reason, because I like things to be logical. You may not see it, and that might be part of the point of the scene is for you to kind of figure out how this happened or whatever, but we're on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of game experience. You guys looking for the traditional, we're going to go through when, someone's got graph paper, that kind of thing. And like, okay, this room looks like it's probably like 20 by 30 or whatever. And we're checking the door for traps. And are we doing a traditional kind of dungeoneering experience, or are you guys looking for something a little different?
Well, what do you mean by different?
So different in terms of a more narrative-based dungeoneering experience. For example, you guys are probably familiar with hex crawls, right? They're an outdoor adventure that's example would be the Pathfinder Kingmaker path, right? That adventure path. That's a hex crawl campaign where you're going through, you're mapping out every hex and what's in it and that kind of thing. So that's like a dungeon crawl, a wilderness dungeon crawl. So there's that side of it. The other side of it is where it's more narrative based, where it's like, okay, well, you guys decide we're gonna leave from Waterdeep to Timbuktu over here, and that's a 5 days journey. I'm gonna roll for random encounters in advance before the game session, and maybe I don't generate any random encounters, and we just say, okay, 5 days pass and you guys wind up in Timbuktu and whatever. So that's more narrative, as opposed to, okay, the road leads on for 5 leagues this way and it meanders off to the right to a brook that's the bridge is out on it, and in where it's more detailed, I guess is what I'm getting at, where you guys have to make a lot more navigational decisions and it's more grindy. So are you looking for that, or are you looking more for, let's get to skip the 5 empty rooms and let's get to, fine, we've been down here for an hour and there's been 20 empty rooms and we come across something of interest now?
Well, that would be all right. The only problem is as long as it doesn't slow down the pace of the game. As long as we're not like searching 20 billion things that don't have any relevance and we're just like, oh, well, we just spent 20 minutes searching for nothing.
Right. Yeah, so go ahead, Dave.
Well, I was going to say I can I guess I don't have a real strong preference one way or the other. I think when I've been in games where it's kind of like the focus, like if the party seems to be really interested in the next town, that's where things get detailed, and the journey to the town is abstracted, like you said, X random encounters during X days or Y days, and that again gives you kind of both. It picks up the pace at a place where it could have been really slow. And yet you do get the fine grained stuff, because I do take pleasure, and most of us are war gamers. So yeah, the tactical
right
screen looks good to a lot of us. And so kind of, focusing in and out would be a nice way to strike the balance, I think.
Yeah, I think I guess kind of what I had thought is, if we're going to do more of a narrative approach to it and less of a grindy, check every single door, we're going to go in and look every room, check every single room for secret doors, open every drawer. If you're not going to, go over everything with a fine-tooth comb, and do that kind of thing, then I think probably what I'll do is we may start off doing a little bit of that, because for one, we need to establish some of the survival mechanics, right? We talked, in the email about, okay, you're gonna have limited supplies. You're gonna be consuming through food and water, and you're gonna be going through, fuel for light and heat and this kind of thing, right? So, plus there's some of the atmosphere in it that you're gonna miss if it's just straight on, like, okay, you spent the last 2 hours going through these rooms, and okay, now you'll find this statue of these two bowls, and here's a puzzle room or whatever, right? So there's probably going to be a little more grind in the very beginning just to establish that, so you get an understanding as to how important some of the survival aspect of it is. And then then I'll get a feel for you guys as to how your approach is when you're going to search a room and that kind of thing, right? So it's just kind of establishing patterns, if you will. And then we can kind of pick up the pace a little bit. And then we can come through, okay, now I kind of understand how the party's marching order is going to be, and what your methodology is for going through and clearing a room. And now once you know how you're going to do the clearing of the room, then we can just say, oh, fine, you clear 5 rooms, and here's the next, juicy morsel of the story or whatever. Does that sound like that makes sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
And like I said, a lot of it has to do with how the characters are going to round out as well, because some people might want to be like, well, yeah, let's go look over here because there might be something useful for what I'm going to be doing with a potion or a spell or something else that, they might want to go off in that direction.
Right. I think it's probably going to be one of those things we're going to have to feel our way through for the first few sessions. I certainly want everyone's feedback at the end of a session, good or bad or ugly or whatever, and we'll adjust accordingly. So if at some point in the game you session, you guys feel like, okay, you know what, I think that session kind of felt a little rushed. Like we probably could have used a little more tactical slowdown, then we can adjust accordingly. Or if on the other hand you guys are like, you know what, that kind of seemed like pacing was slow and kind of dragged, then we can kind of adjust from there.
Yeah, and I like your the roles, like the navigator. So if one of us is really into the mapping, that's a natural assignment for that person, so they can take pleasure in the places and the moments where a lot of detail and fine grain is going on, and somebody else can be keeping track of the time, TikTok,
right?
And
right.
Those two might be at odds.
Well, that's why I bring it up, because one of the reasons, you can use the layout of the dungeon to your advantage in a tactical situation, right? So that, okay, look, we're up against, we barely survived an encounter with one of these things last time, right? And someone scouted ahead and there's 8 of them. Shit, what the hell are we gonna do, right?
Yeah.
So if you kind of have the layout of the dungeon, if you took the time and you did the map, you can kind of figure out, like, okay, you can picture everyone gathered over a lamp, or with the scroll laid out over the table, and like, okay, well, if we can kind of bait them into this chamber here, then we got an angle we can kind of barricade them in and set the room on fire or whatever, right? So I want you guys to have the freedom to set the pace as you will it, but I don't want to drag you guys down into a room by room clearing if that's not what you want.
Okay.
Okay, goals for the game. That's where I asked, what is it that you're wanting to really do in this? Are you just in it for the hack and slash combat? Do you have some kind of, picturing that this is going to be a never-ending world of dungeons? Or you want to set yourself up as some sort of a dungeon lord who, finds a way to turn all these, creatures and orcs, whatever you encounter, turn them into your minions to go off and explore for you? Or what's your goals? What do you think you might want to do?
I think a lot of it has come down with how this system is going to play out. Because like I said, it's a new system for me. I've never done this type of system before. And I just want to see, initially, we're just going to have to see how the system is set up and how we use it. And then I can get a better picture of what direction I want to go in.
Okay. So if it helps, think in terms of traditional D&D. So let's say you're a dwarf, who's a fighter cleric, and the campaign takes place in, the dwarven halls and the dwarven mines, and you guys are doing the stereotypical dwarf thing, right? You're mining for minerals and whatever, and you might come across, a goblin warren or something like that, right? But you have no intentions of, leaving the dwarven realms and going to the surface and going, hanging out with the dwarves and man and that kind of thing. Like, I'm a dwarf. I'm staying in my dwarven kingdom and we're mining. Or conversely, like, I'm a goblin. Screw those dwarves. This sucks. We're expanding. We're going raiding into the dwarven territory, and who cares about their stupid gold? I can't eat the gold. I want their mead.
Well, I played a bit of that Kingmaker adventure in Pathfinder, and I was really getting into the idea of building a hold or a keep for the team, and there was a little bit of it, but not as much as I liked. So I look forward to that possibility here. And as far as so I guess yeah, I'm more for trying to imagine myself in this world, immersive, and building, if not trying to take over, at least build a secure community or place, make a good green zone for our group. And then, as I understand the character development, it's probably going to be kind of gradual. And so eventually, I would like to get into like the role play, like that my character is going to say and do different things than Don's character because we've grown to be different in terms of our skills and proficiencies. But initially, if we're all starting out at 0 level, I think, just bringing back whatever resources we and information we get from the red zones and then building out our green zone, I'm going to, that'll be satisfying to me, I think.
Okay. Okay, so you're gonna find a lot of enjoyment out of some of the community development aspect of it, then.
Yeah.
The base development.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think like the first 5 levels or so, or however many levels, it'd just be basically a dungeon crawl for that little bit, get us to flesh out of characters, and then maybe go from there.
Yeah.
Get a feeling for what the world is like.
Okay. Okay. So let's talk about how long the game session should be. So I'm looking at running it on Saturdays, once a month. I imagine Don, you and Kevin are still going to be going to the Griffin on whatever Saturday we're going to game. So I'm picturing us doing an evening run, like probably no earlier than 7, simply because of what time you guys would be getting back from the Griffin and dinner and that kind of thing. And Don, I know you're an early riser because of your work schedule, so I'm picturing us probably starting at like 7 in the evening and stopping by 11. Am I on the right track here? Does that sound like what you guys had in mind, or are you picturing something else?
That works for me.
Yeah, I think anywhere between like 3 and 4 hours is a good length. Even for like eventually when you involve others in this, that seems like at cons and so forth a good typical length for adventures. And then I think that to kind of skip to one of the group rules about chit chat and real world talk and that kind of thing. I think we could also, like, in that 4 hour period, schedule one break at half point, or one, maybe like a 5 minute every hour or something like that for food, snacks, chit chat. Maybe like if we all agreed that we're going to take the first 15 minutes to just talk about, check in with one another, what's new and that kind of thing. And then once we're done with that, then we, focus on the game. But just to have that as kind of a ground rule around time management, I think that would work.
Yeah, I'm used to long sessions, getting together for 6 hours and more at a time, simply because we wouldn't game all that often, and when we did game, we'd squeeze everything we can out of it, right? But yeah, when you're doing fewer sessions and there's shorter time periods, we're all coming together to have a good time and to visit, community entertainment here. But yeah, I think if we want to make consistent progress, that would definitely help. Get together maybe 15, 20 minutes, whatever, online, work through any tech problems that may be going on at the time. Like, oh wow, it's audio quality is not real good tonight or whatever, and maybe troubleshoot that or whatever. And then, like you said, okay, let's take a break every hour, take a 5-minute break every hour, maybe 10-minute break halfway through or something, a little bit longer break or something. Okay. Don, you on board with that? Is that good for you?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So, so those two topics, how long the game session should be and group rules, those kind of lead together. And do you guys have any other thoughts in terms of group rules and group expectations? Like, I don't know, if someone new wants to join just to check it out, for example, what do you guys want to do with a new player and a new character?
I could see, well, first of all, that was another good question, thought provoking. I mean, I think I've seen a whole bunch of different rules work, and whatever the team feels, agrees on is good. I've seen, equal shares. Sometimes the team, if the game master will allow it, the team will like own everything. And then, if there's a magic sword, maybe one adventure, a different adventure is using it than the last adventure. Another thing I've seen is like dice roll-offs. If there's 3 potions that we discovered, we all roll a d20 and the high die gets the first pick, and the next high die the next pick. And if you roll low and there's only 3 potions, you don't get one that time. So any of those things it can be workable, and it's just a question of what the team feels. With a newbie along, I would think it would be fair if they had some like discounted share, not an equal share, if that's what we were doing. And then on the other hand, I was thinking that maybe we want to give a little bonus to the team people who are taking on these roles of like navigator and timekeeper and quartermaster. Give them a few percent extra if they're stepping up and they do a good job. The team could also fire them and say, we need a replacement.
What do you mean we're out of supplies?
Yeah.
What do you mean we've got 2 hours worth of light sources left? We're a good 4 hours from base.
Yeah.
We're screwed. Yeah.
So I see lots of possibilities there.
So let me throw this out there. What if a percentage of the experience that you guys earn, you set aside, it goes into a community pool for you guys to figure out how to divvy it up? So maybe you were talking about rewarding someone who's got a role. Maybe you guys decide, you know what, the only role we're going to be concerned about is the timekeeper role. So whoever's doing the timekeeper role gets half of the, XP pool or whatever at the end of every session. Or maybe you guys don't do anything like that. You just keep banking it. And then if you lose a character, then fine, your next character gets to draw all the XP from that pool so that they're not as far behind as the rest of the party. What do you guys think of that concept?
That'd be a pretty neat little idea, just to have like a community pool of XP that we can get new characters up and developed faster than and keep up with us.
Yeah,
I think that the divvying of experience based on that, I think there's going to be too many issues with that. I think there'll be too many concerns about some people saying, too many arguments of who gets what, when, and where out of the experience pool. I think if we're going to do that, we just divvy it up as is, however you feel it should go. Or like you said, just give a little extra to the guys doing the roles and not have that pool being able to be divvied up among players.
Okay. So it sounds like you guys both like the idea of a pool, but it's reserved for anybody's new character so they can spend it.
Yeah. So we're not dragging along a level 1 guy as we're going through a level 8. You're trying to balance out a level 1 with a bunch of level 8s.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean,
all right.
Like I said, the new guy shouldn't shoot up to level 8, but a few levels will make him at least survive a little bit longer until he can get back up with us.
Yeah. So we're speaking in generic RPG terms so far, just for the sake of simplicity, but and without getting too much into the game mechanics, I did mention that there aren't levels for my game system. Basically, the way it works is whatever skills you've got, like let's say you're good with a longsword, right? And you've got a skill rating of 6, up from a 1. In order to raise it to a 7, you're going to have to spend a certain amount of experience points to raise it up to a 7. So you're not leveling, like going from a first level fighter to a second level fighter, but your skill with the longsword has gotten better. And same with spells and proficiencies, it all works the same way. So when there's a generic XP pool for the party to draw from, that's something that you guys can think about, is that, okay, well, our survival rate's been pretty good. No one, we've gone 5 sessions and, we're pretty confident no one's going to lose a character here. And you're looking at, what, I think our survivability could increase if, my heal spell was a little stronger. Does anybody mind if I I'm short, 3,000 XPs. Anybody mind if I draw from that to bump it? That's something you guys might think about.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Are there any other group rules that you guys kind of want to talk through?
None that I can think of right now.
Well, we touched a little bit about magic treasure. The the equal split of treasures, not so much an issue for this, because again, we're not dealing with currency. It's basically when you find supplies, you find 50 pounds of supplies, and it's whoever's carrying it, you split it, whatever. I mean, it's survival supplies basically, right? Torches and canteens of water and rations, whatever. So that kind of thing I'm not too concerned about. But Dave, you brought up like, okay, fine, you find a potion of healing and a potion of strength or whatever, and a magic sword. Do you guys? You mentioned a couple of different methods for splitting that up, rolling forward or whatever. Do you guys want to go into that a little bit more on how you think you might want to handle that situation?
Well, I'm just gonna reference the online group that I've been playing in. And again, if our group decides another rule is better, then I'm all for that. But in that situation, I guess what we've done is first asked if there's a player who really would benefit from the magic sword, for example. And if so, it's a clear choice, then we would, say you should take it. In fact, sometimes the player is, for whatever reason, aw shucks, or I just think my character isn't gonna be leading the charge, but the rest of the group says, no, you take it and use it.
We're tired of you missing, damn it, take it.
Right.
Yeah. I just want to end up, I agree with that. I just want to end up with a system where Wizard has a +1 plate meal for some odd reason. So I really like the WoW system where it's need versus want, where everybody says, okay, I need this item, and then everybody that says need will roll off against each other. And if nobody needs it, then everybody just goes to the pool and everybody rolls and sees who ends up with it.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Okay. All right. Well, the exact particulars aren't that important to me. It's just I will just kind of want to feel for, are you guys on the same page?
Yeah.
And it
People
sounds like
people
you
who
are.
really want the item should have first preference, and then the rest of us that are like, hey, we can sell it when we get to the nearest town. Kind of in the background.
Right. In this case, it'll be no one needs it, no one wants it. Fine, we'll leave it here because it's not worth carrying, because we want to save weight for supplies or whatever. Or, okay, we'll take it with us, and if we find someone we can recruit as an NPC guard or whatever, then they can have it to help secure the green zone or whatever.
Right. And then if nobody needs it, we'll just like I said, just do a random roll off, and everybody just rolls, and whoever gets the highest ends up with it.
Okay. All right. So, what are you guys most looking forward to about the upcoming session?
Well, go ahead, Don.
Basically, I'm just learning for the first session 0. I'm just learning how to do the system and figure out how the system works and how all those skills and everything else. are going to lay out with the character. Because that should be just basically how the character is going to develop is probably first and second session.
Okay, so for the first session, you're really just looking forward to learning more about the game mechanics and kind of what your options are for developing your character.
Right. See what does and doesn't work.
Okay. And Dave?
Yeah, I'm interested in kind of experiencing and learning a new system with old friends. I mean, people I played with before. So we've played a number of different systems together, not fantasy, but so this is just, yeah, I'm just kind of looking forward to that. And the character development is the newest of this new system is the thing that seems most unusual to me. I mean, I know dungeon crawls, but I don't necessarily know this way of developing the character. And it seems like it's going to be revealed slowly or developed slowly rather than kind of upfront. I know what my character's going to have when he's 20th level, and I've min-maxed everything, and I know exactly, which spells I'm going to have at level 6 and that sort of thing. This is inverted, and so that'll be interesting. I do enjoy role playing, and so I'll be kind of looking for clues to, I guess I'm going to be building my backstory as we go. So it's not a backstory, but I am interested in, if there's several of us who become combat experts, what is it that distinguishes us? And it might just be simply that in a roll or a chance encounter, one of us got several critical hits with a ranged weapon. And so that's what sends us on that specialty, that we're the ranged weapon expert for the group. So that'll be not so much the first session, but that's kind of what I'm looking forward to in the whole arc.
Okay. Yeah, the game mechanics for this are entirely new, from the standpoint that I've ran campaigns with these game mechanics that I've developed before. I've been tweaking them. It's been a long time since I ran a game, but what is new is the initial character creation part of it. Instead of spending an entire session 0, explaining game mechanics and walking you through building a character and that kind of thing, then I thought, okay, let's take this all the way back to 0, and let's just start with one thing at a time in an actual campaign scenario. So that way you're running through it and you could see firsthand why and how one stat value can help you in a situation versus a different one, and where one skill may be desirable over a different one in a particular situation. So it's going to be kind of more of a natural growth kind of a development. I think the strength in this is going to be that you guys will be able to have the character built that you want to play, while at the same time not having second guesses or regrets about decisions that you've made, thinking that they were going to play out differently than they have.
Mm.
I think about I think if you play as rules as written in a traditional game like D&D, where you've got to, if you're a spellcaster of some kind, you know, because Don and I and Kevin, we've been playing Pathfinder on PC together. You got to go in and you got to memorize your spells. Well, okay, we're in a dungeon environment. I don't know what kind of spells I'm going to need. I'm going to take, you know, 3 combat spells and a feather fall and a jump. Well, you know, what if you never need, you know, the feather fall and the jump? It's like, why did I not only why did I memorize this, but why did I spend the 2 slots in my spell book for spells that I'm never going to frickin' use?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I don't like that experience as a player where I wind up with useless stuff that I want to respec out of, you know, if this was a PC game, you know, to get rid of useless skills. And so that's kind of the experience I'm wanting to avoid for you guys, is thinking that, you know, okay, I'm going to take a particular skill and then I'm going to find out, yeah, it was kind of stupid. I shouldn't have taken that. So I think you guys will like it. We'll see. It's going to be new for me too. What ruins the game for you guys? What just makes you roll your eyes and go, oh God, I could be, you know, I could be playing on the PC right now. I could be watching a movie. You know, what ruins it for you guys?
Don, why don't you go first?
Well, I guess I guess sometimes, you know, every now and then you become like like I said, a background supporting character where you're just following around the guys that have all the stats in one area, and it's always they're always the one that are doing something. The best thing I can think of is when you're running 2 barbarians and you're running into every encounter is nothing but fighting. All they do is run up and smash stuff, and you're like, oh, okay, I'll just sit back here and shoot a arrow at something.
Or when we're playing Grim Dawn and I'm a necromancer with, you know, 13 undead running around and they're killing things before you have a chance to run up and hit it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So what ruins it for you, Don, is not having the opportunity to be engaged in whatever's
Right.
going on.
As long as there's a good variety where if I build a character a certain way, it can actually be incorporated. So instead of having to, like I said, that railroad thing where I have to go combat to be able to actually do something with that character, I can like diversify and say, okay, maybe a little herbalism here and some other stuff here, potion making, various other things that can be helpful.
Yep. Dave, what ruins it for you?
Well, yeah, kind of along that same general theme, just too much of a good thing. So my list is kind of long, but they're all sort of just moments where it was too much. Like I've been in parties where the focus is so much on like XP and murder hobo, and I don't get to like, because I like role playing. I don't ever get to talk or try even to talk my way out of a situation because they're all dead by the time I get up there, unless I got initiative first.
Right.
And then there's some people who sort of they'll give me a chance to talk, but at the first opportunity, it goes into combat. So I guess, and I also mentioned like too many puzzles, you know, just extreme. The only other thing I would add is, and this comes from all kinds of games, is arguing about the rules, either with one another or with the GM. that just, I understand in many cases that somebody had this really cool plan and there was something that they were assuming or some interpretation they had that's going to derail their plan and just like ruin their perfect plan that they had, and they get invested in making sure that their interpretation is the right one. And I've seen games, whole campaigns just vaporize because somebody was going to try something audacious and the rest of the group or a chunk of the group said, no, you can't do that. So arguing about the rules is I mean, we of course will have disagreements and misunderstandings and all that, but we should probably have some sort of ground rule or group rule, that says after you've, made your case to the GM or to another player or whatever, that there's some way for us to settle the matter and move on. So too much or too long arguing about the rules is really ruined some games and campaigns for me.
Yeah, I think we can probably all relate to that one, or have at least, witnessed that firsthand, and hopefully not been involved in that ourselves. But yeah, for me, well, first of all, it's going to be a little different experience for you guys, simply because you don't know the game mechanics.
Yeah.
What are you going to argue about, right? You're learning it.
Well, that means even more arguments because we can just say, "Oh, this is how it's supposed to work."
Okay, so you'll find a way to argue about it. That's I gotcha. Okay, that's fine. So basically, the way I work is, unless it's a life and death roll, let's discuss it after the game. If it's a life and death roll, we're going to keep the discussion to a minimum, and move on. I am not out to kill the party. I'm not out to kill the characters. I will not pull punches, however. I don't believe in throwing no-win encounters at the party. Unless it's part of the narrative to drive you guys towards a certain direction. For example, the kind of a game I typically run is a good versus evil kind of campaign on a grandiose, save the world type of thing, and just because that's where I think the good conflict stories are, not so much the running the monster hunting campaign games. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's just where my imagination goes. And typically the way those games start for me is you guys start off in a small village, it's your hometown. You maybe you spend a first game session is kind of learning what, home life is like. So you kind of know who the people are in your community that you have value. Maybe your grandma's still around or whatever, and you've got property in there, and then, okay, now here comes the big bad guy, right? The evil army or whatever, and they're here to destroy your village and take away your everyday life to give you a reason to adventure, to force you out into the world to go do something, to go get revenge or whatever it is. So typically that's the only reason I ever throw an unstoppable force at you guys. So you guys will have challenges. There will be life and death situations, but those death is not assured. The dice are not always with you, but if you're in a situation where it is life and death and the roll is going to make a difference and you're thinking that something's not going game mechanic wise the way it should, okay, we'll catch our breath, we'll talk about it for a few minutes, and then we'll move on. Okay, and because this is a group effort, what are you guys willing to contribute to the game experience?
Well, my attention was drawn to like the roles, and there were some that were more attractive and some that were less attractive to me. But when I've worked in like work groups in those situations, a couple of if almost everybody in the group looks at a certain role as especially desirable or especially undesirable, then we develop some kind of rotation or partnering. If there's two people who really want to be the navigator or the map maker, rather than having to decide there can only be one, we could trade off, or we could have a partnership to make the work less burdensome on one person. And that also goes for the other like undesirable roles. So I'll speak frankly that I don't look forward to being a quartermaster. That's like too much detail, I think, and I guess I'm feeling a sense of responsibility that I would, of course, if I did a crappy job because I wasn't motivated to pay attention to it, that I would let the group down. So out of the roles, personally, I think I would feel most comfortable, or I'm most attracted to like being the chronicler of what's going on. But I'd be willing to like co-share some of these duties with another person in the team.
So Dave, what you're willing to contribute to the success of the game is being the journalist, keeping notes of, okay, well, we found this clue. We back here in this one room, there was this inscription by the statue or whatever, that kind of the person that kind of keeps track of the dots so that the party can figure out how they're connected.
Yeah.
As well as, hey, we whatever major events that were noteworthy, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Don, is there something that you really like doing that you think would be beneficial to the party? And it doesn't have to be, any of the roles that I suggested that, are adopted by the party. It can be metagame stuff, like, okay, well, I'm really into, spelunking, and, I've got these great books on, natural cave formations, and then I can dig up all these photos and give you guys all kinds of whatever it is you're interested in that you think might contribute in some way to the party in terms of helping the players be more immersed or help with running the game session. Is there anything like that comes to mind?
For me, no, nothing really that stands out as far as anything goes. Like I said, the mostly that I'm looking forward to right now is just learning the game mechanics And then as I know how the game is run and how it progresses, I can be like, oh, I'd like to do this as a role, or I can help out with this role, or anything else on the game
Okay.
as we go. So it's really basically just learn how the mechanics work, and then I can really just put myself wherever the party needs me. Then.
Okay. I kind of get the feeling that um, a support role that is involved might appeal to you. You mentioned here and there, basically magical item creation like potion brewing and that kind of thing. Does that kind of sound like the kind of thing that interests you?
It's one of those things where we say yes and no, because I like to see how the game mechanics work out and
Mm-hmm.
see how the game plays out to see if it's really something that we need in it, or is it just something, the avenue of something just to do versus we need someone to be drawing maps or keeping supplies on tap and everything else.
Okay.
So it's one of those other things that just says as I go, I know how the game works out, and then we can say, okay, this is what we need, this is what the party needs, and then we can go from there.
Okay. Well, someone who's willing to be flexible is absolutely of value. So.
Definitely.
Okay. Well, let me see here. Yeah, those were all the major points that I had that I kind of wanted to talk to you guys about, so I had an idea as to how to prepare for our first session. Is there anything you guys want to talk about in terms of anything related to this game that maybe we need to hash out some details on or come to some kind of agreement on, or any questions you've got?
How is combat going to work?
Well, in broad terms, uh, everyone will have their own individual initiative, and you'll have a certain amount of initiative points that are generated from your dice roll, which is influenced by the priority level that you've assigned to the different aspects of your character and different skills and that kind of thing. So let me pull up something here, and I will just hit a couple of quick highlights that should give you the gist of it. Just a second here. Okay, so here's what the flow of combat is. Okay, so once combat is officially declared, we make sure there's no one surprised. We determine everyone's position and distance, and that's going to be where you guys are going to establish beforehand a marching order through halls and that kind of thing, and where I'll kind of get an idea as going back to what we're talking about on how grinding the first sessions may be. The determining positions and distances. I'm going to get a feel for how you guys go into a room and clear it, and kind of, if you guys establish that, okay, well, Kevin's character is always guarding, the door that we came in, for example, and maybe Don's character's got the greatest awareness, so he's going to be able to go through the room the quickest and have the best chance of detecting anything that's hidden. So We know that Kevin's character, if combat were to start, we know Kevin's character is going to be by the door. We're going to know you're going to be anywhere randomly in the room, and maybe Dave's job is, maybe Dave's, watching your back or something.
I hold the torch.
Yeah, whatever it is, right?
The
So
torchbearer.
yeah,
Yes.
yes, there you go. So that is going to kind of give me an idea as to what's going on in terms of where the party's at, because it's not like we're going to do a battle map for a 30 by 30 room and you guys just pick where you want to be when the combat starts, right? It's not going to be that kind of situation. But anyway, moving on. So combat's declared, determine surprise, determine positions and distances, and then you guys are going to declare what your intentions are for this first round of combat. Your declared intentions will determine what your initiative roll is going to be and any modifiers for it. After you declared your intentions, you're going to make your initiative roll. Every action that you take, whether it's to move, to cast a spell, to attack, to ready your bow, whatever, those have action points associated with them. So maybe you've got an initiative roll of 20 and the action you're going to take costs 5 points. Okay. So then after we determine what your action cost is, we're going to resolve the action. So you're going to make your attack roll, determine, whoever you're attacking is going to try to resist. We'll figure out damage, that kind of thing. You'll pay out what your action cost is. And then if you've, then we'll repeat that process until the end of combat. So that's it in a nutshell. There are no hit points. Everyone basically has, it's a percentage base. So when you're at full health, you're at 100%. You take a light wound, that's 10%. So now you're down to 90%. You take a moderate wound, that's 30%. So you down 30 more percent of your health. That's the gist of it.
Okay. Now, are we gonna all be humans, or there's gonna be like different races and stuff like that in it?
So to start with, you guys are all human.
Okay.
What's that smile, Dave?
I was just thinking, yeah, so we slowly mutate because of the radioactivity underground.
Could be. You become troglodytes.
Yes.
Well, my character was always kind of short, and I don't know, I started developing this obnoxious beard growth and
Odor.
started to put on a lot of weight and getting a gruff attitude. I don't know, I guess you will just call me a dwarf. No, you guys are going to start off as human. There will be certain events, certain things that you will discover that will unlock the potential for you guys to bring in characters that are of a different race. So if you decide, so once you got the gist of it down, and these things have come about, if you decide, you know what, I want to try another character, this guy's going to stay back in the green zone, and he's going to be responsible for cranking out, torches and potions and that kind of thing for the party. And he's going to be a base camp character for a while, and I'm going to bring in a new character, and so I'm going to bring in an elf character, for example, or whatever. And okay, fine, you make up a new character, you know what more about the game mechanics now, so you can freely, assign attributes and that kind of thing, and you talk to the party about pulling XP from the pool to bump up some stats and all that kind of thing.
All right, that's pretty much all the questions I had.
I guess the questions I have are around the character development, but I'm willing to sort of wait and see. I'm playing another online game now with the Cypher system, and the game master, it's new to all of us, including the game master, but he's taken a similar approach where he says, I'm assigning you experience points every time, but I don't want you to use them yet until you understand more about the system. But rather than having us like read the details, he's kind of just trying to establish the feel of the world. So he's encouraging us to be patient and wait before we start specializing our characters in their development. It's also kind of slowly revealing superpowers that are, I think probably his own invention. There's not a fixed menu of those. So using that kind of as a framework, I can manage my curiosity about how my characters are going to develop, and so I will be patient and give it time.
There is something I can show you guys that may help you kind of visualize this a little bit better. And if you bear with me just a minute here, I think I can find it. Share this out here. Let me share. You guys seeing the spreadsheet?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So this top row here, attributes, battle prowess, faith, etc. These are the different aspects of your character. So attributes are your strength, dex, con, etc., right?
Yep.
Battle prowess, that's how well you do in combat. This is the primary factor that determines your initiative. So it determines how quick you are in combat. It also directly impacts weapons. So your melee attacks and your bows, it determines how successful you are with those kinds of attacks. Faith is your clerical powers. Sonic aptitude, obviously psionics. Race, depending on what race you are, that will determine what value has to be assigned to this. Resources normally is your copper, gold, silver. It's your starting money normally is what this is. And instead, this is going to be your starting supplies. Skills, these are your proficiencies, how many proficiency points you'll have to spend. Spellcraft is your arcane powers, how many, basically how, if you will, how many spell points you've got to buy your spells with. So that's the gist of it. So a fully developed character will have a priority value assigned to one of these aspects, with A being the highest priority and H being the lowest. And you can only assign one of these priorities one time. So you can't have more than one thing with a priority value of A. The higher the priority value assigned to an aspect of your character, the greater the benefit you get from it. So to start with, you guys are going to have a value of H assigned to everything. At the end of the session, you will be able to raise any aspect of your character to a priority level of G. And so if that means you get more points to spend on your attributes so that you determine I want to spend more points on my intelligence because I think I'm going to make a spellcaster. Then okay, well you can take those extra points that you get and assign them to intelligence. You will still earn XP throughout each game session. But like how it is in your other game, Dave, those XP points are going to be locked. You're not going to spend those until you have reached this point where you've already assigned your priorities to everything. So by the end of our 7th session, you guys will have had all your priorities assigned. You'll have, I'm just throwing a number out there. Let's say you've got 30,000 XP points that you've earned over these sessions. So now you've got all your points distributed to your attributes. Maybe you bought some spells, you've bought skills with them. What you've spent your points however you want, and now you've got XP that you can spend to say, okay, I really like how crossbows work. My guy's a sniper. I'm going to spend the XP that I've earned up to this point, and I'm going to improve my skills with the crossbow. Does that kind of help you guys visualize a little bit more about how this is going to go?
So if my character is a spell user at the 7th session, can his priority be spellcraft?
Yes.
Okay.
So your character might look like this instead.
Okay.
You might go priority A into spellcraft, and then maybe you might put priority B into resources.
Okay.
I mean, it could go anywhere after that, right?
Right. Okay.
And then what you would do, what you might do, I should say, with your points is you may say, yeah, I'm a spellcaster, but I'm not too much of a combat spellcaster. I'm kind of, the party's engineer. Most of my spells are in things to help us survive in the dungeon environment. Maybe I'm gonna put some extra points into. Here's a magical spell that's gonna be of great benefit to the party. How about light?
Yeah. Right.
Holy cow, we finally found the light spell. I'm gonna learn that son of a bitch right now, and I'm gonna put some extra points into that. I want to raise the level up of that so that it lasts longer.
Okay.
So for those that are going to do spells in psionics, once you have the ability, once you've put a high enough priority level into spellcraft for your wizard type of spells, just because you've got the ability doesn't mean that you know any spells to cast. You guys are going to have to find your spells in the dungeon still.
Okay.
Normally I don't do that. Normally it's, normally when we start the session, you guys are at this point where you've assigned your priorities to wherever you want them to be. You pick out your spells that you start with or your psionics that you start with, whatever. And then we just start the adventure. Because of the story and the campaign that I'm running with this, and since we're starting all the way, here at the beginning where you're, basically peasants that know nothing, you're going to have to find this stuff and you're going to have to learn it. So, you may have in mind that like, you know what, I want light, I want magic missile, I want fireball, I want fly, whatever you think you want, you're going to have to find it. So, but there's no limit. It's not like, oh, gee, I've only got 18 spell slots for first level spells. I don't know if I want to learn detect undead because I really need to save a spot for light, and I'm up to 15 spells so far. It's not like that. It's just there's no limit. You know, about if I make 100 first level spells, you can learn 100 first level spells.
Okay. And how do you imagine faith and psionics developing? Would we also find religious and psionic artifacts in the dungeon, or?
So faith is prayers. You know, there's generically speaking, there's still spells.
Okay.
The idea here that I'm running with is basically that you're invoking the names of angels or fallen angels or whatever to carry out, you know, this prayer to make whatever magical effect happen. So you're still, but it's your faith that powers this prayer, that enables the spell effect to happen. So you still have to find that prayer, still have to learn it. As far as the psionics go, it's pretty much going to work the same way, where you've got to find something. The difference there is that you find a source of inspiration, you find a piece of knowledge, or you witness a natural phenomena, you see, you know, you studied, you know, an animal or whatever. There's something that inspires you that you come across that enables you to unlock that potential within you to create that psionic effect.
Okay.
So you're not going to be able to just say, okay, well, I raised my priority level and okay, now I'm going to pick, you know, 5 new powers or whatever.
Okay. Sounds interesting.
Yep. So this is going to be, I want this to be as much about exploration and survival as it is about dungeoneering.
Okay.
Anything else you guys want to discuss?
No, that's pretty much fills up everything for me.
But I'm glad that we got into the details of combat and character development, because then you can have Kevin and Scott watch this and they'll get answers to those questions too. Yeah, that's good.
Yep. Yeah, Kevin has a lot of experience with this. It's a little different than the last time I was running campaigns, in terms of the core game mechanics, just because it's evolved over the years as I've, you know, hashed out some things, and the nature of this campaign is dictating how certain things are going to unfold a little differently. My original idea for this basically was, you know, Kevin's been on me to run a game again for a long time, and for various reasons, I just haven't. And I thought, all right, well, let's just do a dungeon crawl campaign. It's gonna be real simple. I don't have to get into a bunch of other crap. We can just, I mean, a dungeon crawl campaign is gonna be pretty simple. And then as I sat down and started doing things, started thinking it through, things like the resources. Like, okay, if it's a nonstop dungeon crawl campaign, who cares if there's gold or not? What are you going to do with it? Am I going to set up shops in the dungeon? I could, but it seems too video game to me. You know, I'm like, I don't want to do that. So that's where the supplies and the furnishings and the equipment and the decorations, all that stuff comes into play. And then as much as I was trying to avoid getting bogged down in story aspect of it. If there's a blank canvas, my imagination wants to fill it.
Mhm.
So this is turning into a lot more than I originally expected it to be, but I think you guys will have a good time. It's going to be a brand new thing for me to do. It's not going to be as refined as many of the other adventures that I've ran several times and have improved upon iteration by iteration. So you guys get to be the guinea pigs, but I think it'll be a fun new experience for all of us.
Yeah, sounds like it.
So I don't have any plans for us to do any more of these sessions, but if something comes up and you think, hey guys, we should get together and talk about something real quick, or and an email is not going to do it because we really need a discussion, then just shoot an email and schedule something. But our first actual game session, I don't have it here in front of me. I want to say it's beginning of June.
Yeah.